How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Alex Jones and InfoWars being banned permanently from Twitter. Now, this has been a long time coming. I'm not surprised. I think that Jack, the CEO of Twitter, just wanted to get something a little bit more concrete before he just went ahead and did what all the other social media platforms did about a month or so ago. You know, they pretty much all colluded. Now, I will use that word. They pretty much all colluded to get Alex Jones off of their platforms. You're talking about Google, Facebook, YouTube, even MailChimp, Discuss, the comment platform. They all banned him almost simultaneously, which obviously denotes some kind of coordination or, like I said, collusion. But Twitter was saying, well, we need some more time. He didn't violate any of our rules, this, that, and the third, which kind of contradicts their statement that they put out. But before we get into all of that, before we get into all the hypocrisy, before we just explore, let's watch this clip from Fox News. They explain the situation in a little bit more detail as to why Alex Jones and InfoWars were banned from Twitter. After we get done with that, I'll talk about that specific clip, and then I'll give you my own 2 cents. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Twitter gives Alex Jones the boot. The social networking site permanently banning he and his media company, InfoWars. Fox News Headlines 24/7 reporter Carly Shimkus joins us now. And has Jones responded, Carly?
Yes, he has. Now, Facebook and YouTube have already taken action against Alex Jones. Now, Twitter is following suit. The company officially released a statement on their safety account yesterday saying, today we permanently suspended @real Alex Jones and InfoWars from Twitter and Periscope. We took this action based on new reports of tweets and videos posted yesterday that violate our abusive behavior policy, in addition to accounts past violations. Now, the ban occurred after Jones insulted a CNN reporter during this week's social media hearings, and then he live streamed that footage to Periscope. Jones is responding. He responded on an InfoWars affiliated show saying, I was taken down not because we lie, but because we tell the truth, and because we're popular, and because we dared going to that committee hearing and standing up to Rubio and the lies of the mainstream media. They don't want me on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter because they want to lie about me and not have me respond.
Okay, so you saw that. You see what's going on. You see what's happening. Now, first things first. The CNN reporter in question that was being harassed by Alex Jones, and the reason why Twitter got on him about that is because he was streaming the situation on Periscope. Periscope is a product of Twitter, and of course, he was posting the Periscope videos on Twitter. So they were saying basically you can't harass this man using our particular platform. The guy is Oliver Darcy. Now, in this situation, I'm not going to side with Twitter, obviously, for a few reasons, which I'll get into in a moment, but this is what Twitter was looking for. Like I said earlier, Twitter did not join into the whole bandwagon collective banishing of Alex Jones earlier, like August, about a month or so ago, because they wanted something more concrete. Jack, the CEO of Twitter, was going through his own situation. He's testifying before Congress. Matter of fact, he was just at another congressional hearing about the social media and Russia collusion, stuff like that. So he had his own issues to deal with. He didn't want to have the Alex Jones situation kind of clouding things up, because at the same time, while you're being questioned about election interference using social media, you're also being questioned about shadow banning conservatives. There's been some conflicting statements that have been made. So he wanted to avoid any further complication of it, and he wanted to get something a little bit more concrete, and here we are. I think the guy Oliver Darcy full well knew what was going on. I'm pretty sure he had spoken to Twitter before. My opinion, not necessarily something I read or something that he said, but in my opinion, he probably spoke to Twitter or people that represent the company that may know what's going on the inside, and they probably told him and others that, hey, if Alex Jones is saying something to you, don't say anything. Just get him to say more. We'll use that as justification for getting him off the platform. That's exactly what happened. And I figured that was going to be the case. All right. Which is why when I was watching this clip from Alex Jones and speaking to Oliver Darcy, which I will place in the box below, I knew where it was headed. I knew that he was just trying to bait Alex into saying more things that could get Alex Jones moved from the platform. Now, do I think Alex Jones was right in what he was saying? Absolutely, yes, 100%. But I also know that he was already on thin ice with Twitter, so this was going to be used against him, although it's not fair. And the reason why I say it's not fair is not because I'm an Alex Jones fan, which I am, but I say it's not fair because the so-called rules that Twitter has, they do not apply to everyone equally. I've been harassed on Twitter on many occasions by the blue check mafia, as I call them. Matter of fact, I did a video about it, and I'll place that in the description box below. This was November of last year. We're talking almost a year ago. A lot of these big name people, journalists, reporters, entertainers, I've been harassed all the time. They get on you because of your race, because of how you look, because of your personal viewpoints, all kind of stuff. And then they do it kind of all at once. And one particular day, I got harassed by like 20 of these people. Now, am I trying to cry victim? Am I trying to say, woe is me? Not at all. I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy. If you're going to suspend Alex Jones or ban him permanently for so-called harassing Oliver Darcy, then what about all these blue check mafia people, those who would defend a guy like Oliver Darcy that harass guys like me? Maybe I don't count because I'm a heterosexual conservative male. All right. I guess the whole race thing doesn't even really matter in this particular case. Maybe if I was a homosexual liberal male, then it'd be a different story, especially if the blue check mafia was of a different political persuasion. What if this were a situation? What if I was a homosexual liberal black male and I was being harassed by conservative blue checkers on Twitter? All those blue checkers would be dragged all throughout the media. They would be called racist, number one. That would be the main thing, the racism. Then they would be called homophobic, transphobic, all kind of obics, obes, and is straight out the gate. The so-called rules that Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Google, Discuss, Spotify, Apple, etc. have are only applied in certain situations. They're applied to Alex Jones, like what was said in the video, because he's popular. And these companies don't want his message to get out there. They don't want him to be the face of alternative media because he has a very big following. You're talking about tens of millions of people. And I'm not even really exaggerating. It's at least 10 million, if not more. So you're talking about a lot of people that follow this man who believe in what he says, or at least are in some kind of way influenced a little bit. When you're watching certain forms of media, you're going to take some of what they say to heart. It is what it is. They want their particular platforms. When I say they, I mean the left. They want their particular people that they elevate on their platforms to be the only way you get any kind of news information. That's just what that is. I feel bad for Alex because he is just the most prominent figure in the whole situation. At the same time, I feel like he could go about things better. But to kind of back off a little bit, I don't think that there's much he could do because you're so popular, you're so well known. Part of what makes you popular in this particular case of Alex Jones is the bombastic style, the kind of in-your-face style, which is needed because a lot of these people would do things and they would pretty much get away with it. There won't be any kind of kickback. However, it's a double-edged sword when these same people that you're trying to confront on the platforms that you're trying to operate on. It's a weird situation. Now, some would say bring the government in to make them give Alex Jones service. What about talking about Twitter as a public square? I don't want the government to be involved because that can open the door to a lot of things you don't want. Maybe the government will be able to come in and say, all right, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc., you guys cannot ban Alex Jones because of the way he thinks, because of the way he feels. That's unconstitutional, or whatever kind of way they want to go about it. But once you do that, then the government now has a foothold into the internet in which it didn't have before. Yes, there are some kind of ways that the government regulates the internet. You can't do certain illegal things. You know, you're talking about certain kinds of, film that you can't show. I don't need to put it out there in a very blunt and blatant way, but you could put two and two together. There are certain things you can't do. You can't be pirating stuff, stealing stuff. You can't do that on the internet, but as far as, regulating content, who's going to be allowed on what platform, once you start to get into that and allow the government to get in there, they're not necessarily going to always operate in the way that you see best fit. You may end up with a net loss by allowing them in there. So Alex Jones, I'm not really sure what you can do. Just try to have your own platform. Now, we're talking about a .com website. I think it's going too far when you get removed from the internet that way. I think there should be some protection there, because if you have your own .com as your platform, you built it up. Like, let's say you have a server out of your own house, you have a .com platform, you shouldn't be taking off of that. I mean, that's going too far. It's different if you're on Facebook or Twitter. Facebook or Twitter, that's their particular platform. That's Mark Zuckerberg. That's Jack Dorsey. That's their particular situation. You shouldn't be able to come in and dictate to them how they're going to regulate their platform as a private citizen, as far as being able to, come in with the government and say, you must do this for me, because that can be used the other way around. The left could do the same thing. They may say, well, I don't like being treated in this way. I want to be treated, so you got to be able to show me, just like people that may be for transgenderism, different kinds of homosexuality, they may say, I want equal representation as well. So you got to show, nudity. You got to draw lines at a certain point and not allow the government to get in there. I'm kind of going off on a tangent. I'm kind of ranting, but at the end of the day, as I close, I just want to say that Alex, in this particular situation, could have handled it better. Although I think that the fix was in from the very beginning. Twitter was looking for a reason to get him off the platform, so it could bode well for PR purposes, so they wouldn't look as bad in the whole conservative censoring thing. Because remember, during that particular time when Alex Jones was banned from all these platforms about 3 or 4 weeks ago, Jack came out and said, well, there was no reason to ban him. We didn't violate our rules. And one more thing, I almost forgot. In the particular explanation that was provided, they said that Alex Jones had violated certain rules in the past. And then the CNN thing was the icing on the cake, I suppose. But if he violated certain rules in the past, then why did Jack come out and say in early August that he did not violate any rules, which is why he has not been suspended? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Either one is true, the other is true, or none are true. Somebody's lying, or there's some miscommunication. Maybe they got to do better and stuff like that, which is what Jack kept saying throughout the hearing, but I digress. My point is that there's something fishy going on, and I think it's because they're trying to save face, like I said, for PR purposes, no other reason. The rules aren't handed out evenly. If you are of the wrong gender, the wrong gender identity, the wrong sexuality, the wrong skin color, you could be treated differently on these platforms. But invoking the government, I don't think so. I think it's just more of allowing more competition to come in and having the people vote with their feet. If enough people feel like Twitter is not doing the right thing, then that may lead to another platform being able to flourish. That's just kind of how that goes. It happened with MySpace. Nobody would have thought that MySpace would go the way of the dodo bird, but it did nearly overnight because people did not like the direction of the platform. They did not like the things that they were doing. It's not what's happening right now with these big tech companies, these big social media companies right now with the censoring and shadow banning and stuff like that. It was more just about the functionality of the website. But regardless of the situation, the decline of the particular platform and user preference led to other platforms rising. And the same thing will happen here. That's the best way to attack it. Invoking the government is not the right idea. I think Alex Jones would be just fine, and Infowars.com is still booming. Now, if the Infowars.com website gets removed, now you know you got a problem, because there's all kind of websites out there that have much worse stuff on it than Alex Jones could ever have. And these are mainstream, popular, heavily visited websites, not just random podunk, middle of nowhere. Nobody visits, 1 or 2 clicks a year. Not talking about them. You're talking about adult film and, some really crazy stuff. And also a lot of the mainstream media. They post a lot of inflammatory things against conservatives all the time. So do their so-called reporters, journalists, or whatever. Just like what I was talking about earlier when all those blue checkers attacked me personally, as they always do, other individuals, people calling for the death of Donald Trump. They wanted to get assassinated, all this, that, and the third. These people still seem to have a home on Twitter. There's all kind of graphic violence, nudity, all that on Twitter. They have a home. It's not really an uncommon thing. But a guy like Alex Jones gets banned. There is a clear ideological war going on here. But what do you think? Do you think that Alex Jones deserved to get banned from Twitter? Not only Alex Jones, but InfoWars, their particular Twitter got banned as well. Do you think that there have been more egregious things done to people than what Alex Jones did to this reporter? I believe there is. If you could find any particular cases of it, link it to me in the box, send me email, do whatever you gotta do. Just let me know what's happening, and whatever other comments you have, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I gotta say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.